Hi, my name's Rachel McLeod. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and an emotional wellness coach. And I help people do, I think it just reset me. Anyway, I'm going to intro myself again. I'm Rachel McLeod. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and an emotional wellness coach. And I help people do the brain work of resolving symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress. I'm one of those therapists that have been heavily influenced by The Body Keeps the Score, that book, interpersonal neurobiology, and really all things about neuropsychological healing and rewiring, developing, helping brains reestablish or establish for the first time healthy habits, healthy connections, integration with different parts of the brain. That's really what I'm all about, and I help people make their lives better, and really one of my favorite things to do is help them resolve symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress. Which, interesting enough, while I'm ranting, is at the root of lots of the areas we get stuck. And we actually don't know that there are symptoms of anxiety, depression, or traumatic stress that we can find in there. And if we will help the brain resolve that, then all of a sudden that area of our life starts moving forward again. So, which leads me to the topic for today, which is how brains heal symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress. There is a process for this. Brains are phenomenal at resolving symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress, and it's what my entire practice and how I help people is based on helping brains heal, not helping them understand the symptoms, not helping people talk through the symptoms. I mean, it's great we do some of that, but it's really about is your brain able to complete the process of resolving this? And so if your brain can, all of a sudden it heals, and all of a sudden we get new insights, we get new ways of being, and we're actually rewiring the physical structure of our brain. We're actually making things stronger and healthier. We're growing areas, we're letting areas return to a normal, healthy size in the brain. We're really doing very deep healing work on a physical, neurological, emotional, and mental level, just by helping brains complete their process. What I do is a lot different than what's done in talk therapy because of this focus of helping the brain heal. And so when we understand that, then we see that there's a different path that we want to take that is actually somewhat inclusive of talk therapy, but it's also very different. And I'll talk about why that is and how that is. During this live, I'm going to talk about why brains are not healing, which parts of the brain are causing the whole process to break down, how we can tell if the brain is not able to complete its work, if the brain is stuck, and the parts of the brain we really want to help, and how to help those parts, and the specific interventions that that really get the brain moving. I have four that I lean on heavily. There are so many. And there's reasons I use these for, especially because, yeah, we'll talk all about that. But let's dive in. So I really want you to understand that brains resolve symptoms. They are designed to, and there's a piece of our neurology that is let me explain it like this. Our body is this big sensing organ, and its job is to pick up all the information from the outside and the inside of us and deliver it to the front of the brain so the front of the brain can figure out what's going on, right? Maybe there's a little guy in there at the dashboard, and they need to get all this information to be able to make sense of what's going on in the world, and then to reorganize to respond effectively and creatively and synergistically. There's a lot of high-powered stuff that happens up there. However, some of the information moving through the body, and I'm talking about through our senses, like our skin, our ears, our mouths, our tastes, what we're seeing, what we're sensing, all those things, right? All of that stuff needs to come up and go in. And so our body's busy, right? It's busy doing its thing. And then the information that's moving through our body that's positive or neutral just goes straight up there to the dashboard, right? And the little person up there is, I'm sure that's how it works, right? There's a little guy up there sorting all the information. That's not how it works. But follow me here, because you really don't want to hear me try and tell you about the specific parts of the brain and like the medial prefrontal cortex and they will chase me down, the interpersonal neurobiology people, because I'm failing anatomy and physiology right now at all times. So we'll just stay with what I know, and it's how this process heals, because that's really what I do. I'm gonna stay in my lane over here. The positive stuff really gets up there, and that little person in there is just gathering data. The stuff that we're experiencing that is registers as pain or negative really starts moving through the system, and at the limbic system, the pain neurons there register danger in the limbic system, shifts into survival mode, and so the processing gets shut down, and so that little guy doesn't get the negative emotion, the negative feelings, that the negative data moving through. And that data is vital for that little guy to be able to navigate and understand what's happening, but it's not getting any of it, right? And instead of it getting the information that's coded in this negative emotion, that emotion is the brain is shifting us into survival mode: fight, flight, freeze, faint, or fawn. This is where all of our symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress are showing up. So once you have a symptom of anxiety, depression, or traumatic stress, you've caught your brain shifting into survival mode. That's not the direction we want it to take. We want it to go processing, deliver that data, give that little guy up there all the information. But the brain isn't doing that. It's reacting to the information moving through the system, and it's shifting into fight, flight, freeze, or faint. So right here, where you've got a symptom of anxiety, depression, or traumatic stress, you've really got a powerful opportunity to really help the brain do something different with this information. What happens is this information in the body's like, I got to deliver this information, right? So it tries over and over again. And every time that information comes up, shift, survival state, survival strategies, right? Up again, let me try again, shift, right? This will go on an entire lifetime. And this will happen multiple times a day. Because the system's designed to heal, it doesn't know that it's not going to work this time, right? It's job, and I'm just doing my job, making the donuts, right? And so, it's bringing up all those symptoms. It's shifting into symptoms over and over and over again. And if you've got some symptoms of like some phobias, some generalized anxiety disorder, some simple generalized anxiety disorder can be very complex, but if you've got some more simple disorders, you might notice this like panic disorder or panic attacks while driving, or like in a specific area. You might be able to just avoid that little area of your life and be pretty much okay. I wouldn't count on that. But it's different than, let's say you have complex childhood trauma, right? That means that your system has been holding on to information, pain it hasn't been able to process this whole time, and so there's a lot of that stuff trying to move through and heal every day. So people will spend the majority of their day in a survival state: fight, flight, freeze, faint, or fawn. This is why many people will spend a lot of their time fighting fatigue, excessive sleeping, they're just known as being defensive. They're kind of just permanently in a survival state of fight, right? So they're defending everything. This speaks to them being in a massive amounts of pain, right? And so, okay, I'm off the path a little bit. Let me regather and get back on here. So, but you see, the amount of times the brain is deciding survival is how you'll see so many symptoms. And when you see symptoms, you know your brain is going survival. It's taken a left over here. I don't know if my image is going left, but I'm going left. we really want, and it's not actually left or right. Some people are speaking it's front to back, instead of going to the front of the brain. High level reasoning is going to the back, instead of coming to the newer brain development that humans have, that we reptiles don't. Reptile brain, the oldest brain, the newest brain, right? It doesn't really matter. So I'm using a left just for explanation purposes, not that things are actually going left. Okay. So they're going where they're going. But what you can tell is we want the brain to go this path. We want it to go down the healing pathways. We want it to go down the pathways where the whole brain and all of our higher level reasoning gets involved, and we get to make really wonderful, healthy solutions. That's the part of the brain we want here showing up. Okay. So when we're talking about healing symptoms, how brains heal is really by making this shift. If you can get your brain to make this shift, then all of a sudden your brain will be able to heal those symptoms that keep repeating. The brain will take that information that hasn't been processed yet, and actually process it and get it out of the way. And those symptoms, instead of it going that way and you having fight or panic, or won't happen anymore, because not with this information, right? This information, once brains get that stuff processed, it's one and done. What happens is, especially with more complex issues, there's still stuff back here that hasn't made it through yet for decades, right? So we need to, the next thing that's coming up that cause symptoms, we need to get that going down the healing way, the healing pathways. And then that one can't make symptoms anymore because it's resolved. And then we're going to go back and we're going to grab some more. In the beginning, when I start this work, people's brains are like, and sometimes it's too much and we have to really, okay, we're coming for you. Let's not get too excited. I know the pathways are moving and you're all excited because you've been trying to get this work done, and now, but we need a single file line, right? Because the brain can only process so much stuff at a time, and there are tricks for this. But this is all moving on electrical pathways. And so there's a lot of healing that can happen in a very short amount of time when you know what you're doing. And I'm talking about this. Why this video is important is because there's a lot of confusion about what works. Because we're humans and we're going to trial and error things, we're getting a lot of mixed data. Okay, but when I did that, it worked, but I did this and it didn't work. And then I did it again and it worked, and then this, and we don't really know. But we do. But many of us don't, when we're doing this work by ourselves, we don't really know what works. We don't have clarity about it. We have all this data that's random. But if you understand brain function, you know what works every time. You have a lot of clarity. Really, when I tell you all you have to do to resolve a symptom, like let's say you're panicking, your brain is utilizing whatever information is coming through the body. And it's just like, oh, I know we should panic. And we're panicking. If you can get the system to shift over into healing in that time, all of a sudden that panic isn't happening anymore. And the system gets better with that information. I don't know if I'm even saying that powerfully enough for you. But if you know you just got to make this shift, things heal. Things will never be the same. That symptom unravels very, very quickly because the brain is able to do what it can do. Okay, now let's talk about this limbic system. The limbic system here is the choice maker of, are we going survival or are we going processing and healing and growth? Okay, so what we want to do is we want to influence this part of the brain. We want to be all things limbic system. I also call this system the survival system. And so this is the one we are focused on. This is the one I'm focused on. This is what I help people work on. I'm not really interested as much in the prefrontal cortex or any other parts of the brain, but this limbic system. I will teach people. Okay, let me say that differently. The treatment focuses on the limbic system. Right? This is the game changer. We do need to help the prefrontal cortex, the subconscious mind, the body. We need to help them complete their work, but it will be pivotal. The limbic system's role is pivotal, whether there will be healing or whether there will be symptoms. continuing of symptoms or worsening of symptoms, because that part of the brain is smart. And if there's a bunch of symptoms coming at it, it will work harder and more creatively to make sure that it doesn't have to do survival mode, right? And then it's working against us. So we really want to get this right. We really want to treat this part with kid gloves and with support. Like, how can I help you? Right? Limbic system, what do you need? Okay, so, but what we do wrong here is we actually we don't ever talk to that part of the brain in its native language. We don't learn enough about that part of the brain to be effective with it, right? And then we end up being frustrated with it. It's not listening to us. Then we're screaming at it, and then we're fighting with it, and then we're talking trash about it, and then we hate it, and we're like, it's our worst enemy, and we're doing all of that, right? But the truth is, we actually don't know enough about that to work with it well. When you work with it in the way that it works, it responds instantaneously. It responds in seconds, and it will resolve symptoms for you in moments. Okay, which is awesome. And so when you start to get that feedback back from it, you're like, oh, I like this game. Give you what you need, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, 20 minutes of what you need, and all this stuff disappears. Yes, I like this game. Okay, so this part of the brain is listening to the body. It doesn't care what you say. It doesn't care what you think. It doesn't care what you know. It doesn't care, right? So a lot of times we'll sit in therapy and we're talking. That part of the brain isn't engaged. It's not involved. It doesn't care. It's like it speaks another language. You know, if you were to go into a room and everyone's talking in a language you don't understand, you'd probably space out, do your own thing, you know, but in this one's case, it's like, do I need to fight or flight? Tell me. It's like watching this. Everyone's talking around it. They're talking about healing. They're talking about growth. They're talking about, you know, whatever they're talking about. And that part in the brain's like, do I need to fight or flight? Let me know. I think I might. I think I might, right? Let's engage that part so it can be part of the healing work. Like, I want to talk to that part of the brain about healing. I don't actually care about talking to, if I only get to talk to one part of the brain, which, you know, I'm talking to this part. I don't care about talking to any other part if I can't talk to this part. As a matter of fact, if you're not talking to that part of the brain, I would recommend you not go do healing work if you've got anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress, where you're going to try to run the healing programs where this part of the brain is not willing to, it doesn't have enough support to help heal. It is the deciding factor. You cannot outsmart this part of the brain. You cannot work against this part of the brain. It's not designed like that. And that's why sometimes we go to therapy and we go to talk therapies and it gets worse. And we're more symptomatic and we're more upset and we're more distressed and we end up quitting or dropping out. And then we think, well, therapy just doesn't work for us. No, that stuff doesn't, when this healing process doesn't work, it's like you're trying to get this healing stuff through. You know it needs to heal. You're talking about it. You're trying to get it through. And the limbic system's like, absolutely not. Fight, flight, freeze, or faint. As a matter of fact, you're going to walk out of this session dissociated and at low levels of panic that we're going to dissociate you from. And if we weren't dissociating you from, we'd probably have you on the floor, right? I mean, really, this part of the brain is the deciding factor of whether things heal or not. So let's learn to support it, and it works with the body. If you can send messages of safety through the body at the same time pain is moving, right? So this negative emotion, grief, sadness, betrayal, distress, fear, terror, I might have said that twice. I think it deserves 2 times. Any of these negative emotions, if you can, while you're paying attention to that, talking about that, feeling it, sensing it, drawing pictures of it, playing music that's evoking it, any of these things that we're doing to really help the body bring this pain up. If you can also send through the body signals of safety, it processes the survival, that part of the brain has enough support to actually shift this energy to the top, where it can finally be processed and integrated, and the body has completed its process. Its whole job is to get that information to the front of the brain, right? And we're working while we're having these emotions or what we're doing. We're working to support that part of the brain to have it have enough safety to go to processing. So other people will say another common term here is we want to regulate the nervous system. We want to put while all this pain and distress and grief and negative emotion, terror is moving, we want to regulate the nervous system. Yes, same language. Right? If we can, and there's lots of tricks. The body is very responsive. That part of the brain, it doesn't even know that we're kind of hacking it or we're manually operating its relaxation processing strategy. And that's what we're doing. That's what we have the opportunity to do now. Before in our cultures, we had a lot of this body stuff in it built in. If you understand how the different ways bodies heal, you can see that, anything you would do with a baby, right? If you're rocking, this movement is a safety signal a lot of times in tapping and patting and that comfort from another person, touch, I see you, this is really hard. That connection, that's the soothing sounds. We're using the body, we're using the ears, right? Eating, we're using the mouth, we're using the taste buds to send signals of safety, right? Historically, the brain knows that if we're eating, we're not being chased by a tiger, so we must be safe. That's its rationale, right? If we're being hugged and comforted, we don't do that when you're being chased by a tiger, right? And so these are ways the brain's learning where we're at here. I think I should run. Wait, hold up. We're being rocked. Okay, we're safe, right? It's very, very simple. But a lot of these things that we know intuitively don't promote healing because they just promote that regulation. We calm down, and then we're like, but it didn't help the information get through. Right? So we really want to combine these things. There's a little bit of a dance here, but it's really pivotal that we can regulate the nervous system. Okay. There's some interventions that I teach and they use the body. And so they're working with that part of the brain and they're sending messages of safety that brain responds to very quickly. And we are using them at times where we are thinking about or experiencing symptoms. So we're combining the two things, attention on this symptom and regulating the nervous system, which I call attention and intervention, right? Those are the two key ingredients here to the healing dance. Can you pay attention to the symptom and can you use an intervention? This is easy. This can be very simple and it can be very complex. I teach people basics all the way to absolutely the top strategies in my program, Inner World Transformation, and when I'm working with people, because I feel like we all should be and get to be really, really good at working with our brain and supporting our brain. Right? We can get help. It's nice to have buddies or a professional support and all that stuff. And at the end of the day, you're the one who has to spend time with you. Right? So you can build this skill of attentioning to the highest levels that you want to very, very quickly because you're actually doing a lot of it anyway. You just don't know how to combine it in a healing dance and get your brain to do its healing work very consistently. And get consistent results. And then when my clients are doing this, and me too, I mean, once you do this enough, you're like, oh my gosh, this works. Oh my gosh, this works so consistently. Every symptom I've tried it on resolves. Hold up. And then all of a sudden it's like this shift takes place from running from your symptoms and avoiding them to come at me. And then it comes with like, oh, and then there's compassion, right? And then there's just like, oh, my brain's just trying to work things out. Let me give it some help, right? But there's, when you still believe your symptoms are trying to get you and attack you, there's a little bit of come at me, So it's part of the growth process, maturation, where we're learning that we're one and we can, that all these things are here for our good, right? That takes some practice. I don't expect anyone to be there yet, but it's while brains can do any symptom, brains can resolve any symptom, and it's their design. The brain is, it's natural and native for the brain to reorganize, I mean, to take this stuff and reorganize to wellness, right? To integrate it, not to reject it, right? The limbic system's rejecting this stuff, sending it back into the body. Nope, can't come here. It's like once it gets up here, it gets to be integrated with the whole thing. Your brain makes beautiful sense out of it, and you can tell, like, you're, because this emotion is part of our emotional intelligence, right? The fear, the terror, the grief is part of our emotional intelligence. But if it doesn't get integrated, we're missing out on so much of our intelligence. And you can see our choices in our life, our behaviors look like they're missing some emotional intelligence. You know what I'm talking about, right? And that's because some of these big feelings haven't made their way up there yet, right? And we want to escort them, we want to guide them. And one of the benefits here is this is part of how brains make resolve symptoms, but we're also giving the brain practice in actually working well with symptom, with fear, with grief. It's, we're teaching the brain, hey, this is not a danger threat to our system. Remember the last time we did that and we got all this clarity and insight and some epiphanies, and then we stopped snapping at our children or our spouse, or we stopped avoiding our work and we didn't procrastinate anymore there. And so the brain starts to really change its relationship with some of these big emotions like fear, grief, despair, hopelessness shifts, because hopelessness and despair turns into courage and new beginnings and hope. Once your brain starts watching that, it really starts teaming up with the emotions. And we want that. That's part of how, that's how, like, we're getting way ahead of symptoms, right? If your body is letting fear flow through to through the integration process, the healing process, it's not shifting into symptoms, right? Symptoms are not occurring. The brain is not using that information in that way. That's powerful. That's what we want, right? Okay, so let me look at my list. So how brains heal, I really want you to see that we heal by having a continuous flow from the body up through the brainstem, through the limbic system to the prefrontal cortex, and then that really rearranges and sends a ton of information back, and you will watch us function better. Right? It's like being playing a sport for the first time and you can't make sense of this or that, but the more you keep playing, the more information your system is integrating, the more it's like, oh, we should do this, and the body movements are starting to become synergistic and cohesive, and the level of game is better. This happens at our homework, our schoolwork, gardening, child rearing, marriage, intimacy, sex, our creative works, our everything we do depends on this, and every one of our life, you see this growth. And if our brain is stuck repeating symptoms, that's a sign that this process isn't functioning, and that we could just get in there and help, right? So, and the more symptoms you have, the more work you got here. We have retraining the brain to do. We have helping it untangle some of these symptoms. A lot of my content right now is about that. It's always about that. But anyway, some of the interventions that I teach are emotional freedom techniques, thought-filled therapy, energy medicine, and EMDR. And I like these because they're fast. There are some really beautiful interventions out there, some of which drive me nuts, but I like them at the same time. But I couldn't imagine doing as a lot of them. And when we have histories of complex childhood trauma, there's a lot of work to do. Right. And so I'm not going to sit in box breathing, right? Out in 4, inhale for 4, exhale. Like, this is fabulous if I want to fall asleep, right? If I'm like, my brain is all excited about all the things, and great. But do I want to, I'm not doing that, right? With all of these other symptoms I can't sit there counting to 4. I'm not, right? And what we want to do is we want to find the right interventions for the right symptom, for the right people. Some people like this, some people like that. Sometimes, and so after working with so many people, I know these 4, people can do them enough to resolve a disorder, right? And so, and then the other ones that we learn and play with are really wonderful. But breathing is really powerful because that long exhale really shifts us from fight or flight to rest and digest. And that's where the healing happens. So we're telling the brain, let's go over here. Slow exhale. You know what I'm talking about. The brain's like, oh, I do. That's where we let the stuff happen. We're safe. We're having that full conversation with that part of the brain just by slow exhale. Right. But so these interventions, emotional freedom techniques is about tapping on points. Thought-filled therapy is also using the body with tapping meridian points. Energy medicine has a lot to do with different holding different points of the body, different movements. EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, is using the eyes to guide the brain through its healing work. That one has some pretty gnarly side effects, so I teach that one once people have some pretty good skills. But I'm bringing this up because I want you to know about these interventions, and I offer free trainings on these on my website. You sign up for my email list, and then it takes you to the program for this. It's free. I teach you 3 of these interventions: emotional freedom techniques, thought-filled therapy, and energy medicine. Those are the top interventions I'm using consistently with clients to get consistent results. I feel like if you're working with me, I have a job to do, right? And so I'm going with my best hitters, and those are those 3 interventions. But I want to invite you to do that. You can find the link up in the not in the comments, but in the header of this. But in 45 minutes, I teach you 3 interventions, and you can experience them if you choose. And that's really by the experience, and what you experience is really how you know if this is an intervention that helps your system do the healing work. And you need to know that. You need to feel that. I don't want you trusting me. I don't want you like, well, she said this is going to work. No, I want you to take an intervention and use it and see if it actually works. You should know within seconds and minutes if you notice your system calming, if you notice. I teach what you can notice in other videos and in that workshop. So that online program. So you can decide for yourself. Brain function is pretty impressive. Sometimes I'm doing this work with people and they're like, is this magic? I'm like, no, this is healthy brain function. This is what your brain should have been doing. This is what your brain should be doing, and it's going to be doing now that we're helping it do what it is designed to do. So it's really, really powerful. Now, when you have an intervention, you have one of the 2 parts. You have an intervention, and the next thing is attention. There's a lot of attentioning you can do. Once you have an intervention and you just notice you're having a symptom, you just use the intervention and watch it work. But there's a lot of stuff you want to get ahead of, right? You don't want to be symptom chasing your whole life. You do want the skill of resolving a symptom, but you want to go deeper than that. And so there's a lot of other strategies there. That's what my program Inner World Transformation is about. And so if you find an intervention in that free program that really, really works, and then you're like, well, how can I use this more? And how can I use this for this more complex thing over here? And how can I, that's really a time where you know that this program is designed to empower you to do the rest of the work. Okay. But it is wonderful to have. I was talking with somebody and she said, oh, I was watching your video and it taught me how to work through the panic attacks I'm having at night. Great. Awesome. And the therapist in me is like, and then she went on to tell me about the nightmares. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so many things you can do with those nightmares. Oh, your brain's trying to heal while you're sleeping. Well, let's help it. But it's not my business because you're not my client. And mind your own business, Rachel. Stay in your lane. Boundaries, right? So really there's more with those interventions. There's so much you can do with those interventions. I'd love to teach you them. That's really what Inner World Transformation is for. It's an online program. It's the exact program I walk my therapy clients through. It's the same program I walk my coaching clients through, and it is powerful. I have people that I have never met that have done that program, and I was like, this is changing my life. They email me updates. I love that. This is what I noticed. This is what I'm learning. It's fabulous. And I know that that's exactly what their brain should be doing. It's right on point. And even though I'm not working with them, they're still getting the results. Their brain is still doing what I would expect their brain to be doing. So those are available. The links are in the title here. I want to just answer. I see Christina Laney has written some things. So I'm going to take a moment here, and then I'm going to get off, and I'm going to let you guys get back to your day. But really, I want you to know brains heal. These symptoms that are here today can be gone today. There's some that are more complex and they need more advanced strategies, but really there's so much healing available to you, even with little tiny itty bitty skills. When you start working with that part of the brain, that part of the brain is like, oh, thank you. You don't even need to know because your whole system has its own healing wisdom that if that one part gets out of the way, all of a sudden it can do its work. Okay, let's see. Yes, Lainey talks about chatting. She said, thanks for chatting about anxiety management without prescriptions or over-the-counter medication that could lead to overdose. Absolutely. This is brains heal naturally without medication. There are times when medication can be a great addition to the support team. It's not on the healing team, right? We really want to be pushing hard on the healing pathways but having enough support. I don't poo-poo anyone's medication. A lot of times my clients are talking about, can I get off this now because I'm really not having symptoms? Yes. Right. That's exactly what we want. We want your brain to take over more and more, be able to create health and wellness independently. Right now, but just like if you had a broken leg, I want you to use your crutches for right now. That's where we're at in the healing. Use your crutches. And then we can start talking about coming down off your crutches. So I don't stop people from taking medication. I don't tell people to get off their medications. Every once in a while, I'll be like, we need more support. Medication might be something to consider, right? Because we need more stability to be able to do this work. All right. She's commenting about my office. It's looking tidy and calm. Awesome. Um, all right. All right. Wonderful connecting. Wishing you all the best. Wishing you symptom resolution. The secret behind symptom resolution is the symptoms resolve, but brain function grows. Your social skills grow, your empathy grows, your self-knowledge grows. On the flip side of every intervention is all the growth you get, right? That's why it's so beautiful not just to medicate them or hide them or push them under the rug. Let's grab them and get them going because that's your brain makes your growth from them, right? So, okay, I must go. I will see you later. Wonderful connecting. See you soon. Bye.